All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the, I want to say weekly SIGDocs meeting, but the quarterly SIGDocs planning meeting, February 25th, 2021. Let me start by just sharing out my screen and we can kick this thing off. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. And let me zoom in just a little bit here. All right. So this is the quarterly meeting. We had a little bit of a delay going in between the Q4 with the holidays slowing down and Q1, everything going on then. So normally what would happen is this meeting would be a review of the Q4 objectives and talking about what we're going to do in Q1. Considering that we are quite a ways into Q1, we've kind of lumped them all together here. So what we're going to do is review the Q4 objectives. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what we're planning on doing in the tail end of Q1, or what I'm referring to as Q2 at this point. And one thing I did add to the planning doc that I'm sharing here is the quarter breakout, so you can see what we differentiate each quarter. So, October to December being what we're reviewing today, January to March being the first quarter, and us going into March, not having a ton of time left in the first quarter, we're going to target on what's going on for the second quarter. So I'm going to move these pieces down for discussion later. And we'll also, someone remind me if I forget, but I'd like to also talk about the kubectl discussion that happened here as well, if we have time. So I believe that covered introductions. Let me see here. Membership updates, there was no major changes, so everything's kind of chugging along here. Moving on to the Q4 review. So for the wins, we had the new reference docs, the k8s.io finally got published and merged. So that's awesome. That's a huge win. So for those who don't know, K8's reference docs, there was a website called, I think it's k8sref.io or k8sref.com. I forget the exact URL, but it was a pragmatic way to reference the API, and Google Summer of Code, or Google Season of Docs, sorry, had a individual, Philippe Martin, create the reference docs and basically take what that website had and pull it into the Kubernetes documentation to have a more of a holistic view on that and a more of a better developer experience, to be honest with everyone here. Doc PR Wrangler program continues to ensure timely response to submitted PRs. I will say that's a great win. I can't take credit for that because I know on my Wrangler shifts, I have been dropping the ball personally, but I do appreciate the folks that are wrangling and remaining active, and definitely awesome. The release 120 was a success. So many thanks to Anna and the docs team there. That was a great job, and looking forward to Ray leading the 121 efforts. And then also SIGDocs localization subgroup continues to drive common best practices and tooling across localization teams. And that's a huge win too, because for those that don't know, there's many different localizations within SIGDocs, and a lot of them have their own methodology for working. And that subgroup is aiming to bring everyone under the same understanding, using the same tools. It's a great effort led by Brad Topol and Irva. Or Ivry, sorry. Any other wins that folks want to bring up before moving on? Cool. Not hearing a ton. I think there's a lot more wins than we have listed here, but
didn't we get rid of a lot of third-party content? Wasn't that in that quarter as well?
We did. There's still some ongoing work there, and I've actually pulled that in from the Q4. Let me back up. So the Q4 planning meeting, we talked about pulling that into our weekly meeting and talking about the status of that. There's some lingering third-party content still out there. And what I've done is I've updated the agenda for the next weekly meeting to start carrying that over. but that is a big win though. Cool. Anything else?
Can I call out a small win, which is continuing work on diagrams and switching out old diagrams for better ones?
That small wins are still wins, and I appreciate that. So yeah, that's great work there. And I know that there's been a lot of effort going into converting the diagrams to be more portable and easier to update, easier to maintain, easier to manage. And I think there's a lot of great things going on there. Any other wins or things going on in the Q4, Q1 timeframe that folks want to bring up? All right. So moving on, usually in some of these quarterly plannings, we'll talk about some of the stats about, you know, how many millions of views or what the current status is of the docs in that quarterly time frame that we're currently reviewing. And I thought it'd be interesting to take a look comparatively between the different quarters and some of the trends there. We don't need to spend a ton of time doing this, but instead of just saying the Q4 2020 stats, which were 25 million views, I really wanted to dive into some of the trajectory that SIGDocs is on and just to paint a little bit of a broader picture. So here's the Q3 2020 stats. We're about 25,000 page views. You can see the top 10 page views there. And if we were to look at Q4, it actually looks like a little bit of a drop. Now, obviously, you lose some page views for different days between the two quarters of the period. Who knows why you would lose 100,000, you know, clicks or views. I don't think that that's really that impactful. Also, you have in Q4 the holidays coming into play too. So I would imagine a lot of folks took time off. But when I saw that, I'm used to seeing exponential growth in the Kubernetes docs quarter after quarter, even if it is going into the holidays. It seems like that page view number always is going up. So I was curious to look at what the quarterly or Q4 stats were for 2019. And so when I pulled those, page views were at 18,200,000. So I think that's pretty impressive that trajectory. Looking at a Q4, you know, quarter to quarter, quite a significant jump there. You know, looking at roughly 7 million page views increased over the year at the same time frame from 2019. So, anyways, I thought that was worthwhile or worth exploring and putting that into more of a frame of reference. Like I said, when I pulled the Q4 stats and I saw that Q3 was actually a little bit more hit as far as page views is concerned. I was thinking, all right, let me see what the larger trend is here, and I think that paints a good picture comparing the yearly quarters. Tim?
We made a change, and I don't remember exactly when. And it was on the tools page. And rather than telling people how to install tools, we said, if you want to install Kind or Minikube or these other tools, there is a page. We're not going to document that. Like, there is this other page. So maybe people are bookmarking those, and maybe search engines are telling them to go there.
Yeah, that very well could be. You know, especially at the end of the day, when you're looking at something as massive as 25 million views, I don't know if a couple 100,000 really is that big of an indicator of health by any means, but yeah, definitely could be the case. All right, any questions or comments around those metrics? Just wanted to bring those up.
I have questions actually. Do we send these stats to those in the localization team? In any case, they want to use it to kind of prioritize the things that they want to translate.
Yeah, so we used to send out a monthly report. It was deemed somewhat spammy, quote unquote. Those aren't my words, those are someone else's. And ultimately, what was decided is to stop the report and run it on demand. Now, I believe anyone can get access to our analytics with a read-only view. The challenge is requesting it and then going and you know, digging it up yourself versus a generated report. To answer the question about localization, I did start an initiative to create a separate, smaller mailing list to the localization leads, which I haven't created yet. But the plan was to send every 6 months one of these reports that just covers the various localizations to that mailing list group. So a little less noise, a little bit more of a targeted audience, and it's on me to get that set up. So hopefully soon, but not today.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no
Because I
problem.
have a concern about, let's say if we grant the view only access, then we will forget to kind of like clean up better,
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. One of the challenges I face, at least with Google Analytics, and someone please let me know if I'm wrong because I'd love to be wrong here. It seemed like when you build a dashboard out, you can only email out one dashboard to a group. So you can email like many different dashboards, but they're all going to come in separate emails. There's not a way to create multiple views and have like a bunch of attached PDFs to a single email. If folks in the call know otherwise, or if folks listening to this, recording upon review, let me know, reach out to me if there's a better way to do it. But what I plan on doing right now is just having kind of a spammy noise go to the more of the targeted audience, and then allowing them to filter it with, Google filters or Outlook filters, you name it. All right. Any other questions on the statistics? All right, we are flying through the agenda here. So some of our challenges, this really hasn't changed for the greater part of, I'd say, the last 3 quarterly plannings, 4. It depends on how far back the global pandemic goes. But I still feel like uh, folks need to be empathetic for what people are going through right now. And I feel like I'm speaking for myself, but I feel like I've gotten very normalized to the COVID normal. And I've joked with folks when Texas had the bad ice storm and I was recovering from that. I was like, well, we're not going back to normal. We're going back to COVID normal, but that's better than COVID pandemic ice storm normal. And so with saying that, I feel like we've all, or I shouldn't say we all, at least myself, have started to normalize that. But what's going on right now is not normal. It's new to a lot of us, even though we've been living this life for, I think it's close to a year now, maybe almost a little over a year. It's worth considering that folks are going through different stuff and different challenges throughout their life. And that definitely poses a reason to be a little more empathetic and a little bit nicer to your fellow peers when reviewing PRs and talking to folks on Slack. And overall, I think folks are doing a great job, but I think it's okay to recognize the fact that it's not normal. And the other challenge too is contributor onboarding and succession. So once again, this is one that's kind of lingered with us, and I think the global pandemic probably makes it a little worse as well. But engaging with folks and building that mentorship mentee relationship, advancing through the contributor ladder, there's definitely efforts there, but they're not as clear as they could be, and they're not as I want to say as formal as they could be, but I feel like that's the wrong word. I guess I really mean just a clear picture of the contributor succession, onboarding, and how we do that effectively. So I think we could be better there. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Any other concerns or challenges anyone could think of between Q4 and Q1?
On the contributor onboarding, what I'm going to say is that if anyone's on this call right now, or they're watching this on catch up, then find the SIG Docs channel on Kubernetes Slack and just nudge and say, I'd like to learn about this. And even if we haven't got a great process in place, we have people. I will help, other people will help. So that's what I recommend.
Yep, absolutely.
I was just going to ask that question because I contributed to SIG Docs, to Kubernetes documentation like several years ago, very small contributions. I would really like to get back into it. In fact, my employer, Amazon Web Services, wants me to spend most of my time contributing to upstream docs. So I would love to be given whatever the clearest runway is to get started with that.
Awesome. And Chris, I don't believe we've met. Is this your first time attending?
I attended some of these meetings about 4 years ago, but since then, yeah, I have not been attending. I worked
Awesome.
at Red Hat for a while, and now I'm at Amazon Web Services.
Cool. Well, welcome. We're happy to have you. It's a little bit of a non-formal introduction, joining at the quarterly meeting to get up to speed. However, you're in the right spot. You have tons of folks here willing to help out. I think you can recognize some of the folks in this call and find them in Slack. Reach out, like Tim was mentioning, on the SIGDocs Slack channel, which hopefully someone could plug the Slack channel link into the chat. That'd be helpful.
Done.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Cool.
You're on it. So
I
yeah,
think
Slack
I'm
is
on
going
it.
to be the best place to get in touch with us. And also, if you have any questions here, this is all a friendly group. I mean, feel free to interject, ask questions. I feel like we're here to make other people effective, impactful, and if there's anything we can do to make your life easier, I'm all for it.
Yeah, just a quick question. I did a very small PR today just to try something. And I just don't know, like, what am I supposed to do next? Or should I just reach out to somebody on SIGDocs and say, hey, could someone look at this? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so for the PRs, there is a little bit of a guide or a walkthrough on the Kubernetes website about submitting the PR there. As far as getting reviews, it should have automatically assigned some reviewers or assigned some folks who could review it. I would say just my general rule of thumb is give it, a little bit of time for folks to review it who have been assigned. If it's gone on for a significant amount of time without any review or feedback, I think it's completely fair to reach out to SIGDocs and look for a little bit of feedback. What do other folks think?
I can say that particular PR has a review from SIG Cluster Lifecycle already. And I'm going to chip in on that myself. I think I'm going to weigh in on that. Maybe not right now, but it's something I plan to follow up.
Cool.
Cool.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Sounds like you're well underway then. Awesome. And also, I didn't really ask, is there anyone else joining us for the first time or relatively new on the call? We kind of skipped over new contributors for this call. I think that might be it. All right. So moving on to the blog. Caitlin, could I toss this over to you? If not, I can take it.
Yeah. So we had 13 blog posts published in Q4, which is actually really awesome, especially considering all of the holidays happening in Q4. So that was great. We had a little over 809,000 unique views, which was, a decent growth quarter over quarter. Thanks to the Docker post that I think had a lot of views this past quarter. So just a little bit about like our Q1 focus here is, we've been working as a really small team for, gosh, I don't even know how long, but over a year now or so. So really trying to focus this quarter on growing the blog team. For anyone that's interested, we do have positions open across the board. And I guess I didn't drop in the link to the sub project in here, but we have positions for editorial lead, which kind of wrangles the blog posts coming in, as well as technical editors, and then copy editors as well. And then the second bullet is increasing blog submissions. This is a little misleading. We actually, we're still averaging really great blog submissions, but they tend to come in all in one chunk, especially around a release. So this is more about increasing, the cadence of blog submissions coming in throughout the quarter.
Awesome. Thank you. Is there anything else that either SIGDocs can help improve, or more quarterly objectives, or anything we can help out there? Or is this all good?
I think it's good. I'll probably keep bringing up in the meetings. This is really something I'm planning to focus on this next quarter. So I'll probably keep bringing it up more in the SIGDocs weekly meetings, but otherwise I think we're doing good.
Awesome. Sounds good. And for the folks that are new or reviewing this video and that are looking to contribute, just to clarify, so there is SIGDocs, the group we're currently here, special interest group, talking about documentation. However, there is a sub-project which is focusing mainly on the blog. So getting reviews in the blogs, getting the blogs published. A whole different team is managing, just a different team, a sub-team is managing those components of the documentation. All right. Before we jump into Go review, is there anything else folks want to talk about? All right. So for this part, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through some of the goals that were set in Q4. And we're going to talk about whether or not we're going to carry them forward in Q2, and what the deliverables are, and what the overall status or ownership is of it. Really, this is an opportunity to track progress, to evaluate honestly what we're currently dealing with as far as what the current status of some of these goals are, as well as it's okay to say, you know what, I thought this was a priority in Q4, but I no longer really want to do this, or I don't think this is worthwhile, and say someone else can have this if they want, otherwise we'll take it off the goal sheet. This is really a way of tracking and following the overall, I guess, the broader strokes goals of SIG docs, and making sure that's that we're actually following and keeping those up to date. So without further ado, I will move on to, must have an owner to drive them. Yeah, no goals without owners is a rule, I suppose. So the first thing is release 121, and that is all Ray. I'd give it an assessment of 1.0. It's hard to rate it any way other. And as far as carrying forward, we don't really have a chance there. I don't know, Ray, if you want to give a quick update on 121 or a comment.
Yeah, so 121, it's as far as docs is concerned, we've changed some of the process, and it's going to be changed in 1.22 as well. So there's some changes in how we contact enhancement owners to make sure to create their placeholder PRs and to get that started. And like I mentioned, it's going to be changed in 1.22 as well. So so it's still we're still on schedule. It's not as I guess we don't have as many doc PRs open as we did in 120 at this time, because the doc team hasn't actually started contacting enhancement owners, and that's on purpose, because the other sub teams, enhancement team, they're the ones contacting the enhancement owners and toll code for you. So we're still doing fine, and so I want to thank in advance all the SIG docs reviewers. You guys are all awesome. You guys review things very quickly, so I want to give a thumbs up to all those reviewers and to Jim as well. And I'm sure we're gonna do a lot of work on April 8th when 1.21 is scheduled to be released as well. So yeah, so everything's going fine. There's some role processes in that is currently changing, so I'll change that in the docs role handbook. But just as a warning, it'll be changed in 1.22 as well. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. And as far as the 122 changes, will they be drastically different beyond what you just mentioned, or just continuation of that model of having folks opt in as opposed to reaching out?
It's going to be drastically different, actually. So the 121 is a one-off. So there is a new receipts process, which it's not complete, so don't want to speak a lot about it. That's going to be used in 1.22. So it's going to change quite a bit.
Gotcha. Well, appreciate the update, and as always, let us know if we can help out. And as things come down the road and major changes, we'll roll with the punches.
Sounds good.
Well, thanks, Ray. And moving on to the thoughts on the web performance subgroups. This was brought up by Taylor. Taylor messaged me and said that he will not be here. I believe this is the one that we were chatting about, and Taylor mentioned that he would like to carry it forward. As far as an assessment goes, I would say this is at a 0. There really hasn't been a ton of work. This has been driven by Taylor. I know Taylor's been incredibly busy. However, I think if this has no progress, next quarter review, I say we toast it. Is there anyone that feels otherwise? All right. Moving on to continuing work on organizing the task section. Karen to open the issue with objectives and actions. And I'll be honest, I have not kept up with this at all. And I don't know, Karen, if you want to take this one, or Tim, do you have any feedback or opinions on where we're at?
I don't think we did very much on it. We did do some organization, but we didn't make a really formal effort, I think. I think there's more work to be done. So I wouldn't mind. It could either be reworded. I don't know, Tim, do you have anything you want to add?
So I think in terms of assessment, it's like 0.1, like some stuff happened, but it wasn't very formally organized. And there's been a lot happening. So yeah, point one on the assessment, and I'm kind of an undefined on whether to carry it forward. I wouldn't want to be the person driving that. I have other things that I would want to be driving in ahead of that.
Right. I mean, I think the work's kind of ongoing, but I don't think it needs to necessarily be part of a formal to-do list, on a formal to-do list.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so what I'm hearing, it sounds like we potentially say no as far as carrying it forward, but we all know in our hearts that there's an overall objective to continue work here. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, to add a bit of a narrative on this, like at about the time of the switch to Doxy, that kind of highlighted that the existing task navigation was really poor, and we dealt with like the sore thumbness of it, and it's like it's not great, but it works, and so the drive isn't necessarily there, and I want to save some of that drive for things that we are going to talk about later.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So as far as carrying it forward here, let's go ahead and mark this as no. Thumbs down. No objections. Cool. All right. Moderation of some sort for the CSS, JavaScript, etc. This was brought up in Q4, essentially saying that there's really no one actively focusing on the CSS, the JavaScript, some of the inner workings of the site parameters. And when folks do make contributions to make changes to CSS or to make changes to the JavaScript, when folks make these changes, they require a different mindset or a different technical reviewer. And this is really a call out of potentially advertising that fact, maybe building out that team, a pool of folks that could review those PRs. I don't think there's been a major progress on here, but I guess I'll open it up. Does anyone know if there's been progress on this? All right, hearing a whole lot of nothing. I'm going to give this an assessment of 0. Now, with an assessment of 0, I do recognize that there are folks that are doing technical reviews on CSS and on JavaScript, and there are the lights are still on and we're still good there. But as far as a formal effort in a goal sense, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. As far as carrying it forward, thumbs up, thumbs down. I would vote no.
Is there a way to, I don't know, to track that we didn't, and what I want to achieve, I don't know if this is a thing we can really do, is like I want to have us remember that the next quarterly review that we didn't do this and we still ought to.
Maybe we
without
can
necessarily
kind of
putting a goal on it.
maybe we can kind of put some sections called the scope and then put this into that section, maybe. So we can revisit it later if we want to.
Yeah, I'm wondering, we might think, let's just plug this into the year-long goals.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks for the idea, Yervi.
You're welcome.
Let me plug that in there. All right, and I'm going to make a note. So when, Q2 review comes up, we're not like, why are we talking about this again? All right. So we'll say yes in a tracking sense. No owner. But all right. Cool. So see, where was I? All right. So the next one was the lower barriers to enter, lower the barrier of entry to doc sprints. So what this was for was back in the before time, the pre-COVID, when there's conferences and we were holding a doc sprint before the conference started. There was this concept came up to create videos and documentation about how to effectively contribute to the Kubernetes documentation. This was supposed to be more of like a prepping step. And what had happened traditionally is, let's say we had 4 hours for a doc sprint, you would lose a lot of time in the first half of that doc sprint building the configurations for people's systems to contribute to the docs, signing the CLA. Some of the complexities of contributing to SIG docs would take up a significant amount of time in the sprints. So therefore, we created this goal to create videos to say, hey, before a doc sprint, we can send you a list of videos. It will get you on the ground and running faster. So when you go to the actual doc sprint in the conference, we're all talking the same language. We are all moving forward into the same direction and hopefully be a little bit more effective. So that was a long-winded description of this. But at the end of the day, we haven't done a doc sprint. I want to say since there's been lockdown, I don't think we've done anything formal from a KubeCon perspective from doc sprints. But what has happened though is Jeffrey was one of the folks owning this, and they did post a they did post out a link with a video that they made, and you can check out the link here. Looking for feedback. So here's where we talk about the goal, talk about some of the pieces I just mentioned there. If folks are interested, feel free to review this content, take a look at it. As far as the assessment goes, I really want to give this like a 1 because I feel like it was started and done. I feel like it's not getting the attention or the love that it deserves. Saying that I'm also responsible for not giving it as much attention as I think I probably should have, to be honest. So does that sound fair? Folks agree the assessment of 1, maybe a 0.5? I could be sold either way. I don't think, is Jeff on the call?
It sounds like he delivered. My guess is to have an action item that we should make sure to get reviews done before we actually have a sprint, which I guess would be what KubeCon EU is, or no, it's going to be what, Los Angeles. This is when we're going to actually be in person again, right?
I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but it'd be awesome if it is.
Well, yeah. So if we think optimistically, maybe the goal is to make sure we do have it reviewed before that date. If you give it a date, then right, then maybe it'll get done. Or like a month before that, rather, I guess.
Well, this is a quarterly goal, right? So if we're carrying forward, we're carrying it into Q2 2021.
That is very fair. I appreciate that. Cool. So do folks generally agree? And for assessment, I'll give it a 0.9, I guess. We'll give it a little bit less. Just got to give credit where it's due. Right. Yeah. Perfect. All right. So folks carrying it forward, it sounds like thumbs up. Yep. Next time we're in person, hopefully that's in the near future. Awesome. All right. Next up is syncing and aligning docs for the CKS certification exam. And I will pass it to the busiest person in the world, Ray.
So sadly, and I do apologize, I would give this assessment as a 0. Had a company change last quarter, but I actually still have signed up for the CKS exam. Haven't prepped for it, so I do plan on, when I do prep for it, to see if, and after I do take the exam, to see if there's corresponding documentation on the CATES website. I do know, I don't know if this is tied, this might be for the year-long goals, but I know SIG security docs, they worked on a hardening guide, and if someone has a draft for a hardening guide, that might, I don't know if that is going to be part of the CKS, but I'll talk about the SIG security docs and later on as well. But anyway, so I give the assessment a 0. I do want to carry it forward. Still signed up for the CKS, just haven't taken it yet.
So Ray, I have possibly some good news. I have taken the CKS, and I have, without marking which of the PRs that are relevant, I have made a few tweaks already.
Oh.
So 0.1.
Yes.
I know there's a lot more to do, and having done the exam, I know what the areas are, but because of NDAs, I'm not going to say what those.
Yeah.
It's too revealing.
Awesome. So all we have to do is review your commit history, and we'll figure it out, right?
Yeah, luckily I haven't worked on anything.
Don't answer any more questions, Tim. Don't answer any more questions. You have the right to remain silent.
Yeah, but it is only a 0.1.
Cool. And so, Ray, it sounds like you're happy to carry that forward. Sounds great. Anyone else want to be added to that?
No cycles, sorry.
No worries. Cool. And the one thing I didn't do for this previous one as well is put an owner for who's going to review the stats before next sprint. Any volunteers for that?
Jeffrey, you're on the call now. Welcome.
I am on the call now. Sorry, I had a doctor's visit go long. Still working on it. Still wanting to carry it forward.
Awesome. No, I'm happy you're able to join. Sorry I missed you earlier. I was going through and we were talking a little bit about the current status of it. And I said you did a great job getting that intro video out and advertising it. And I feel like the feedback has been lacking. And I took responsibility myself for not also being active in that feedback. And so where we're at now,
I understand that December, January, people have other things on their mind. But
definitely. And with that, I think that the next steps to really drive this home is getting the proper feedback and the reviews that you require, and then seeing how we can implement this next time we're in person at a KubeCon or a doc sprint. Is that a fair assessment, or anything you want to add, Jeffrey?
that sounds great to me.
All right.
I mean, this is Brett. I'll certainly sign up to watch the video and review it. I mean, it's the least we can do, right?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it took the time to make it. I mean, I'll happily review it.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks.
Cool. All right. So we talked CKS. Continue to drive the localization subgroup and its goals. Brad, you want to take that one?
Oh, absolutely. I think we want to keep going with that. We still got more work to do. There's still some decisions to be made, and it's just a good cadence to have to keep the localization teams talking and agreeing on things as things pop up. So you can assess it as you like, but I'll certainly be willing to carry it forward.
Awesome. What would y'all give it as an assessment? Irvi and Brad, I know y'all have been really a lot closer to that.
I would give it like, I'll be hard on us. I'd say like a 0.7. I think there's still more work to be done, but still getting everybody together and making some decisions and getting the conversations going for common tooling and practices. So, I mean, I hate to review myself. That seems so uncomfortable, but 0.7, I don't know. Irvi, what do you feel?
Yeah, I think it will be 7 because we still trying to gather the experience that the localization team has been through. We still need to kind of digging more information and agreeing from them to.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And Irvi's been wonderful to work with. So thanks for being a co-chair, Irvi. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm wondering, this might be something that we move to the year-long goals as well, until it gets to a status point where maybe we feel comfortable either removing it from the chat or doing whatever we want to with that. Does that sound fair to folks, moving this to the yearly?
It does to me, yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna say yes, carry this forward, and we have owners, Brad and Irvi. Anyone else interested in helping out localization?
Not yet, sorry.
You said not yet?
Yeah, this is a true. You shared some link the last meeting about the other roads. Is the contributor? No, it's that. The links are broken, and I was trying to fix it and reading the documentation. There is a lot to do. There is a lot to learn about how to contribute just to fix that link. And I didn't do it yet. I didn't join the Spanish team. That's my objective, and I'm here just to know how you work, because the Spanish, as far as I know, doesn't have meetings monthly. I asked it, and they say that they are available to do that, but they are not doing that. right now. So I joined your meeting. um, I don't speak English very well, so I try to catch up whatever I can.
Your English sounds perfect to me, so no problem there. And really happy to help out. And I think that you would benefit from attending the localization group that we're talking about, the monthly meeting there. I don't know, Brad or Irvi, if you could plug that in the chat.
Sure.
And then on
Yeah.
top of that, I feel like if you have any questions about contributing, once again, like we were telling Chris, is the Slack channel is going to be the #1 source for asking any questions you have, anything that can be clarified. I really feel like there's no judgment there. We want folks to be successful. We want to help out. So any questions you have in that Slack channel for SIG Docs, be incredibly welcomed.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that because I'm here in the shadows, and what I'm doing here, I'm not contributing at all. Like I'm just looking what you're doing. I'm sorry.
We are very happy to have you, and we got a lot of folks here ready to support you and bring you out of the shadows. So that's what we can do to help you out.
One thing that I want to add is that if someone is finding that the English language speech is too quick, or that they are not sure that they are understanding something, this SIG has a lot of people who, don't speak English as their first language. Like, we have more localizations that are not English than are English. So please feel empowered to say that if you didn't understand something, we will explain it for you. And that's, no criticism of people. If anyone needs to ask, just go ahead.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. As far as the goal review, that about wraps it up. How are folks doing? Do we need a bio break? Are we good? Do you want to steamroll ahead? Hearing a lot of indifference. All right. In that case, we'll continue trudging on here. I made the joke to someone, I forget who, where I said the last quarterly meeting, I was like, this is going to be relatively informal. It should be pretty quick. And then it ended up taking like nearly the entire 3 hours. And so I didn't want to say it this time, and hopefully I didn't just jinx us, but we're doing good as far as timing goes here. All right. So moving on to the year-long 2021 goals, we copy and pasted this piece from above. So automate major and minor release content. So I've taken ownership in this regard, and Tim, you've done a lot of work as well, doing POCs for how some of these components could work together, such as a releases page. I feel like the assessment should be a 0. I guess I'll give a 0.1 for Tim's work that is going on early on in a POC. But ultimately, to give some background on this, I really set out to work with the SIG release team and the SIG docs team on creating a releases page that mirrored similar releases page that you'd find for Golang, for example, or for Ubuntu, or for any of the major software components out there. What has made this challenging, or more challenging than it ought to be, in my opinion, is that there's a little bit of a dichotomy when it comes to the ownership of who makes the releases page, considering that SIG release is such a large SIG and in charge of the releases and in charge of the release cadence, while SIG docs is in charge of the website, making sure that the website is following the content standards that we have set, making sure that basically the website is in order and the contributors are actively leveraging, I guess following like the style guide and getting the general reviews, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, I'm going to pause. Is there any questions about the release page?
I have some comments if there are no others.
Yeah, go for it, Tim.
Let's put this down as a 0. And this calendar year, we've had no progress. I'm not proud of this, but that is the truth that I think we agree on. To be honest, you and me, Jim.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense and completely fair. So one thing that I have done is I've talked a lot with Stephen Augustus on this, one of the chairs for SIG release, trying to figure out how to deal with the overall ownership of the information architecture and how this gets moved forward. And right now, I feel like I'm not sure where we're disconnected between Steven and myself, but ultimately what we ended at is saying Steven's going to open up a PR with the release page that they're envisioning. And then we can look at what it's going to take to empower some SIG release folks to be able to make modifications to that in the Kubernetes website. What does that release page look like? And then combine some of the work that Tim and myself have done on the releases page to bring it all under one roof at the end of the day. So waiting on that example PR, and really the only reason we're waiting on that PR is I want to have clarity. I want to make sure I understand completely what SIG release is desiring out of this, and I want to make sure that they understand what SIG docs is desiring out of this. This goal actually stems very selfishly from myself when I was supporting open source Kubernetes, and I couldn't find easily the release versions, the current minor patch, the current next upcoming release, the date for that. And that was really what I set out to do. I think it might have evolved into a little bit of a larger beast here. So I would like to carry this forward, but if there's no further action in the next quarter or something, we might want to consider taking this off our menu until there's more coordination between SIG release and SIG docs. How do folks feel about that?
I want this to it's really important. Like a releases page is, you know, it's important.
Yep.
I don't know. I haven't looked for splitting this up to find a small task that I could do to move this forward. But I think maybe Jim, you and I, we should spend some time on that so that we can empower other people to chip in, rather than saying there's this massive thing, it needs to be done.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And like I was saying, is I really want alignment with SIG release and with SIG docs and making sure it's a joint effort between the two SIGs. And so potentially pulling Steven into that conversation would be helpful. And like I said, I think at the end of the day, SIG release also wants us very bad. I don't think anyone's saying that they don't want this. I think it's more about making sure that the information is correct and that the ownership is correct, and we're not creating more technical debt that is unnecessary, making sure that everyone's aligned. So I feel like we're all on the same page there. We just need work. we need things to move forward. All right, moving on to stale content, opportunity to automate and prune by SIG or user. And Abby, I know you've done some awesome work here. Do you mind talking a little bit about it if you're still on the call?
Yes, hello. I think you have the assessment there of 0.5, which I think is probably fair or more than fair than what we were able to get to. I do have our proposal, which I've talked about a lot about, which is sort of a really big proposal of what we'd like the project to be for, you know, ultimate end goal. But I just created an issue for an MVP that's sort of a very much smaller scale. There, I have the link in the doc there, to basically focus on defining what stale content is, finding a way to automate it, and then working with a very small section of the doc. So like maybe like, for example, like the security section of just the concepts or just the tutorials or something, and then work on finding pieces that are stale in those sections, and then working with SIG security. This is an example. SIG, I haven't talked to SIG security at all. This is just an example, just to sort of get it going, and we can sort of prove out some of our concepts. So before we commit to like updating all of our content with owners and like talking to all the SIGs, I want to make sure that we have a good definition of how to find stale content. We were going off of the last commit date, but I think Taylor wrote up a script and that doesn't actually reflect a lot of content back. So we kind of got to figure that out. So I think that's sort of what my idea is for the MVP going forward. Like I said, I have the issue there. I'm still free to take this on for the next quarter or two. So yeah, I think it's still worth carrying forward.
Awesome. Yeah, I think as long as there's an ownership for this or an owner for this, that makes a lot of sense to me to carry this forward. I think you've done a lot of great work on this. Just for context for folks in the call who may not be aware, this goal was really set out to I'm trying to think of the right wording here. essentially the docs that are forever changing and forever updating and forever getting new content are going to be, as releases come out, they're going to be features, enhancements, things that are new usually get updated in the docs very regularly. It's new, it's shiny, it's fancy, it's all great. What doesn't tend to happen is the older legacy docs where maybe something hasn't changed in a couple of years, or maybe is not necessarily impacted by those changes. So it's really taken an effort to look through the documentation and say, okay, what documents does SIG website have that are out of date, inaccurate, haven't been reviewed in a while, and making sure that that content is still staying up to date. So I feel like if you think about it as a linear scale, the newer docs are no problem. Some of the active content, some of the active docs that keep churning. It's really about that tail end or that earlier piece of what are the less frequently updated docs and are they in a current health of being accurate?
And just to sort of give people a concrete example, some of the APIs that haven't changed in a while include pod. So some really core Kubernetes concepts, you know, they haven't needed changing, and there's pages that have been left there. So it's not just niche features.
Yep, definitely. And one other kind of curveball or aspect to dealing with the stale content is it's kind of a scary topic, and it's very easy to get to kind of get defensive when talking about removing stale content or editing stale content or pointing the finger at saying, hey, you have stale content, you need to change this, or here's, you know, unplanned work that you now have. And so really one of the large parts of this initiative is clearing out a path for communication, doing the smaller POCs, opening up the issue, clearly communicating in the SIG docs mailing list, things of that nature to widely broadcast these efforts, and then that small scale POC to really instill confidence in the folks that this would impact. Cool. Anyone want to help out with that, or interested in joining Abigail on carrying that forward?
Yeah, I'm interested in definitely looking at the content. And I guess I do a lot of sort of manual looking, but I'm interested to see how automation can actually help. So
cool. Sounds good. Thank you, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on to the doc sprint. So this one should be relatively quick. I feel like we talked a little bit about this regarding the pre-videos. So previously when we talked in Q4, this is just what all we said was, hey, it was postponed until conferences returned. I added in if we should attempt a digital docs sprint. To be totally honest, if I were to be on the other end of the seat and to hear someone suggest a doc sprint, I probably would not be for it. I think it could be a good beneficial opportunity, but to be totally honest with the folks on this call, I'm zoomed out at the end of the day. You know, I have a lot of digital meetings, a lot of digital interactions, and another one by choice doesn't sound too lovely going back to my my new normal here. So what are folks' thoughts on a digital doc sprint if we can't go back in person this fall?
So I don't know necessarily about doing the full doc sprint, but do we have, like, just for the KubeCon conferences, do we have a regular spot that we can? I know last time we had a video series that was a talk that people attended. Is that something that's a smaller scale thing that we could take on while we can't do doc sprints? Or we may not want to do the doc sprints since it's a lot more work to do it digitally.
So as far as I know, there is the ability to record your KubeCon talks or your conferences. So you could join and say, I want to do a SIG docs deep dive or a session on docs. As far as recording a video and publishing it, that is definitely welcome for all the KubeCons. What we had was when we had the in-person KubeCons, we would have the contributor summit beforehand, and we would leverage a contributor summit and the time spent there in the room we had there for a doc sprint. So I don't think there's anything formally. However, there's nothing really stopping us from establishing our own, either like a Zoom meeting or our own kind of side one-off doc sprint. Any other thoughts, strong opinions one way or the other?
Should we assess this with a number?
I think it would be a 0, but what do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm happy to be frank and put a big fat 0.
Awesome. Yeah. Does anybody feel like there are 4 digital? I feel like I don't want to put a damper on this side just because I have an opinion about digital conferences. I don't want to taint anyone else's viewpoint. Does anyone feel pro DocSpring?
Do we see this as a pathway to reach out to like underrepresented minorities or groups who might not be able to attend like a KubeCon event? That would see like reaching some kind of new audience or moving forward on like an adjacent inclusion goal could be a motivating factor for me getting involved in pushing this.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of benefit for folks that can't attend a KubeCon. Now, with COVID going on and everything being digital, I feel like it's a different story. But I think the point is valid as far as you would obviously open it up to the entire world as opposed to a specific location, a specific time, a specific ticket to enter, I guess, if you will. And this could potentially benefit some folks who are new contributors. I think that there is value here, even if I'm a naysayer about digital conferences.
Agreed.
This is possibly a proposal.
And
It's a
what's
proposal
next?
if people want to make it a sort of a thing to go on the end of the proposals list. I'm suggesting.
I totally agree with you on that, and I'm gonna move it, but we're not gonna talk about it because I feel like we've already talked about it, unless there's more to talk about. Cool. Yeah, good call out, Tim. And totally my bad. That is not a goal review. That's me randomly interjecting bullets of random ideas that I was thinking of. So it is definitely a proposal. And then API reference generation, Zach brought up the next steps need clarification and discussion topic. I feel like this is carryover from Q4 where the K8's reference Google Season of Docs user was having some issues getting the PR merged. I shouldn't say issues, more of just general alignment agreement on how that was getting merged and how it was landing in relation to the release cycle. That has all merged as far as I'm aware of. Do folks have any more context on what clarification is needed or if this is valid? Tim?
So I think there are challenges, and I'm going to suggest that I take over from Zach on this, or add me in here. Assessment is well above 0. Well done, Philippe. It's in. The challenge is around providing a stable URI that things like Golang API references and command help output and other places that aren't necessarily going to change. Like if you're deploying a cluster tomorrow and you're putting Kubernetes 1.20 on it, that cluster might stay in place for well beyond its supported lifecycle. And if that cluster has some URLs in the help, we want those URLs to work for a long time. And at the moment, because of the way we do releases and so on, those URLs, those current URLs stay even beyond the support lifecycle. So there's some challenges around there, and there's some sort of anticipated pushback from SIG architecture and other places about moving away. So the work I see here, 0.99 feels a bit high. The work I see, maybe, yeah, 0.8. Like
0.75 and 6s, 9s, or
loads of good work has done. Like all of the hard programming is done, right? All we have to do is the adoption piece. All. But the adoption piece is a separate shape of work, and I think that's something that I'm willing to take on lead. That's it's going to be important. I would like to deliver that for the 1.21 release. It might not be feasible, but I think we've talked separately about having this aligned with a release, so the cutover happening at a release point. Ray's seen some discussion about that already, and that's where I think we should carry it forward.
Cool. And I think I missed as far as the exact challenges or how to best phrase that, maybe in like a one-liner as far as what actually needs work or clarification here, just for my own context.
I'll type something while Karen?
Totally fair. And if you're willing to carry that one forward, I have no objections to that. Anyone feel differently or want to join Tim in carrying this forward?
I just had a comment that adding on to what Tim said, that's
Oh, Ray, Karen was speaking but was muted.
Oh, sorry.
My
Yeah,
fault. I apologize. Ray, you can have the floor. I'll get it after you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Awesome.
Just adding on to what Tim said, with lining up with the release, how we also need to document on what these steps are in the release, in the docs release handbook, with the API reference generation.
Yeah. Sure. That's important. So I guess, yeah, I was going to say, ask Tim, what do you think? I think there needs to be some clarification about what are the remaining tasks or steps. And there's an existing pull request that's out there. It's been out there for a while. And I guess trying to move that forward. There's another one, I think, follow up to that for the 1.2.1 release. And I think Ray, I think the build of the documentation, it is documented, but it's not documented in the handbook. So there's just a little bit of work, I think, to do with that. I think there's another challenge as far as maintaining, we said there would be some overlap between the original reference documentation and now this new one. And so we need to kind of have a plan as to how we're going to phase it out. Maybe I missed the discussion earlier on, I don't know, but
yeah, so I need to get, well, or we need to get SIG CLI, all of the SIGs that basically involve producing binary artifacts, and all of the SIGs that produce their own sort of code that includes these URLs. Any Golang code that references the existing API reference needs to change. So there's a piece of work around winning the hearts and minds to say this change is going to happen. It's probably a KEP. It's probably a Kubernetes enhancement proposal. But before it's a KEP, it's me making sure that I engage with SIG architecture or another person who's got the same time commitment to engage with other SIGs and sell this story. It's not a small piece of work.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit confused about the sell the story, because I think there was, there's been a blog post about the new reference, and I think maybe we just need more information as to say, go look at it, and let's figure out, is this the right, is it heading in the right direction? What changes are needed, and that sort of thing. I think we need some more comments from everybody, but it's just a personal opinion. I don't know.
Do you want to expand on that briefly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I have not seen very much feedback back to docs as to, hey, we really like this this new reference or the new resource pages. I'd like to see feedback from the other SIGs if this meets their needs, or what are the problems, or hey, this.
So there is a GitHub issue with that feedback on. I can dig it out.
Pardon me?
There is a GitHub issue with that feedback on about the barriers to adoption.
Yeah, in SIG docs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think I know which one you're talking about. But there, I guess I think I want something maybe a little bit more formal, saying this is what we need to do now, and this is the target goal, or these are the tasks we need to take right now, so we can make get to this point in 1.2.1 or 1.2.2 or whatever it's going to take. So we can really itemize what the things are and just go after them. Because I think
I'm kind of taking on that piece. Would anyone like to join me in owning that?
I certainly will help you out. I don't know about owning, but definitely rely on some comments, and I'm happy to system reviewing code and that sort of thing, and helping Philippe and whatever it takes. I think I'd really like to see it finished off.
Cool. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Other comments?
I think we need to be open to the idea that actually, what we're not doing is saying, here's the implementation, let's consult on it. We're saying here is an implementation, and we need to be open to the idea that it might need a tweak. But actually, those great new web pages that are much better than the existing thing may not be the final thing that we're able to migrate to.
Gotcha. Open for change. Cool. And just judging by this conversation here, it sounds like there's a strong desire and folks willing to lead this for carrying it forward. Any objections? And Karen, do you want me to throw your name on this one as well?
You're welcome to put my name there. I'll see how much time I have. I don't know. So we'll see. Awesome.
Cool. I appreciate that. I'll do it for now, and then we can talk again in a quarter, and we'll go from there, I guess.
Tim's name's first. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. Thank you. Anyone else interested in joining on that? All right. Cool. So moving on, we do have a break slotted here. I don't know if the proposal would take necessarily 45 minutes. We've already covered this. We're now going to talk a little bit about these remaining three, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit already. How are folks doing? Are folks sick of hearing me talk, or need 10 minutes, or you want to keep rolling forward?
I would, I'd push for a break, to be honest.
Push for a break? Oh, push through a break.
No, I would recommend. One of the things I'm thinking there is there are people who are not saying anything, but I don't want to infer that everyone is definitely pro pushing through.
Totally fair. All right, let's do that. Let's take 10 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll talk about the proposals here. Any strong feelings?
I think maybe probably someone is with audio problem, because when you hear that sound in slow motion, that someone is talking like that, it's probably because you're having trouble with your sound or with your audio. So try to rejoin if you feel that nobody can hear you. That's all.
Yep, no, that's a good point. Yeah, folks, and also if you're having trouble chatting, feel free to send a message as well. All right. So let's meet back here at, see, it is 8:10 my time. Let's do 20 after the hour. Does that work for everyone? All right.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Very cool. All right, see y'all in 10 minutes. Well, I struggle to figure out how to stop sharing. Here. All right, welcome back. It's a nice break. Like I said, this is a great idea, Tim, so appreciated. And so moving on to the proposal section, we've already chatted about the digital, digital, what's the word I'm looking for? Doc sprints. So we've already chatted about that. The next item for discussion was migration work to adopt new API reference and eventually remove existing reference. Is this exactly what we just talked about, or is there more to be discussed here?
I think all we need to do is change generation and above to generation and adoption. Bing.
Simple enough. I like it. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Are we good with that change and we're ready to roll?
Just
All right.
wondering if we can kind of like merge this thing. Oh, you already moved it. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And let me actually, I'll just take that exact piece there and well, I promise I know how to computer sometimes. There we go. I was hoping to carry over the links. All right, I'll update that. Let me. Oh well. All right, I'm gonna leave that there, and I'll update the links then a little bit later. So moving on, Karen, you brought up spending some time to explore analytics, and I was thinking I'm happy to jump into the analytic board here, but is there anything in particular you thought would be worthwhile to take a look at?
No, not really. I just thought it would be a good idea to, just, I guess, read the data, see which pages are currently most read, maybe it's sort of help guide where we need to, look at the content, improve the content, help with even stale content, etc. So no, it's really just sort of, hey, maybe we should have a little bit of data look at the data every quarter, like you did already. So that's it.
Gotcha. No, that's completely fair. I was ready to do a live interactive walkthrough. I got the screen ready and everything. We can we can go as deep as we want to go, but no, I appreciate that, and I totally agree. I'm definitely not a Google Analytics expert, but there are some views that might be interesting to some folks, such as the trajectory through Kubernetes website. And I believe anyone who requests access to the Google Analytics has read-only access to this as well. As you'll see, Kubernetes has the contributor website, which is the k8s.io or k8s.dev. And then there's a production Kubernetes GitHub, which a little bit of a hack. I don't believe it's used anymore, but there was a little snippet of JavaScript that was put on a ton of GitHub GitHub Markdown docs. And when that when that JavaScript component executed, it would actually track in Google Analytics. So you could see what GitHub pages actually had more views, more clicks, what have you, as a way of tracking GitHub essentially. I don't believe that is working anymore. That was an old App Engine application that no longer is tracking. And then production Kubernetes and then raw. And I forget the difference between the two of them, but production Kubernetes is predominantly where we go for analytics. But yeah, and like I said, if somebody finds out that they don't have access to the Kubernetes analytics, let me know. I'm happy to investigate that. I don't see any reason why any of this information should be private, especially from an open source project.
Do you know what this first interaction, second, third entails?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What first, second, third interaction you're showing here on this chart, how it sort of fans out?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Sorry, I made the assumption folks have seen these types of charts before.
I've seen this type of chart, but not this chart. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries at all. My apologies for not diving into this, but essentially this on the far left-hand side is where folks land. So whether it's from a Google search, whether it's from directly typing in the URL, basically your first landing point. And from that point where you go from there. So if you're searching out, looks like a lot of folks started at the reference cheat sheet, and then I'm not sure why the cheat sheet's listed twice. Oh, starting page is where we start. And then cheat sheet looks like it sometime trails off into search. So then they search out, and out of search, the second, so basically it's them walking through the website is what I'm getting at here. And I'm having a hard time giving that narrative, but essentially it's what is your first page you're on, and then where do you navigate from there? So for
believe I-
example,
I
Go
believe
ahead.
I can explain the difference between a starting page and a landing page, which is bookmarks. So you might bookmark the Kubernetes website, and that'll be a starting page, or you might follow a search engine result and follow a link to it. And both of those count as the top row in the starting pages column. So starting pages, column 2, is bookmarks plus incoming links where the incoming link was to there.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. And it looks like a lot of folks start with the main website root, and then they go to Docs Home, and then they search. That seems to be the top interaction. I would say that I'm guilty of doing the exact same flow as well. And you can also see here that 8 million of the requests going into 7 million of them, going into 2 million, 1 million, et cetera, they're the greater 100 pages on Kubernetes websites. There's so many other pages folks land on and navigate through that don't even top these, top 3 or 4 that actually have a clear defined pattern.
There is a sort of action we could take on here. There's a narrow action and a broader action. So the narrow action is, hang on, the main thing people want to do is they want to search the website. That's like about 1/8 of the traffic is they do that, but they have to click twice before they get to. They have to click to the docs before they get to search. So the narrow action is, well, hang on, there's a task here to make searching from the front page possible. And then the broader action is, there is a bunch of analysis we could do which would make that kind of conclusion. So we might want to take either the narrow or the broad task and suggest them for upcoming improvements.
Yeah, another question I ask is why do they need to search? Why is it repeat searching? Is it because they can't find something, or they just want to kind of know what's out there, what's available? They find a little bit and then they want to know what the world looks like. I don't know.
Do we have analytics about what people are searching?
That I'm not sure of. I'm not sure if anyone else on the call is more of a guru on Google Analytics. Feel free to chime in, but yeah, I don't know how to get that. The other piece that might be interesting too is, and I'm not sure if this is the page that I'm thinking of, and I won't spend a ton of time, kind of while y'all watch me splunk around on the analytics page. But I do think it's interesting to look at who's consuming the documents from what devices. So obviously desktop being the heaviest hitter. I would imagine a lot of folks at work and a lot of folks with laptops. By a significant margin, a lot of our user experience is going to come from folks on desktops as opposed to mobile or tablet. And there's, breakdowns of individual devices too. So when you start looking at mobile devices, for example, the iPhone is going to be the #1 used device to access our docs. So optimizing for mobile is another takeaway there, or something similar to that. I did update the quarterly planning to start to use analytics to create action items. I'm not sure if we
AIs
want
is
to.
action items.
What's that?
I did not know that AIs was action items.
Yeah, let me fix that. So I guess, does anybody want to own kind of taking this aspect? I'm happy to tag with somebody on this as far as plucking out some interesting takeaways and going over it, whether that be weekly or quarterly. I think there's valuable information here. The one piece that I wanted to see, and I guess let me pause there. Does anybody want to help drive analytic driven discussion?
I would like to put my name in for that to help, because I think it has a lot of overlap with the stale things going on. So I need to be diving into the analytics anyway. And I also just had another thought. I know we stopped doing the analytics send out to the broader communication, but do we want to do like a narrow, if it's possible to set up like a sub emailing list that people, if they want to get the monthly reports, they could sign up for? I'm not sure if that's worth the effort, but that might be something that is a action item, an AI from this group.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing I was thinking of, just as you mentioned that, so I have no problem with the emails that were sent out monthly. However, I could see if somebody joined the SIGDocs mailing list that doesn't necessarily act as true SIGDocs content in a certain sense. So what I'm wondering is if we could potentially pair the efforts between what I'm talking about doing with the localization teams, where it's kind of an opt-in mailing list, separate from SIGDocs, separate from the localization sub-project. It's pretty much, and maybe the takeaway here is to not make it localization specific. Maybe there's a SIGDocs analytics mailing list that you could sign up for, and you get influx of various documentation analytics, and you can filter it accordingly. That seems to be like a fair outcome to the noise signal to noise ratio, I guess. What are folks thinking about that? Cool. I'm gonna make a note here.
I think people in general are curious about, you know, how the site's read, and I think sort of popular pages and where they should direct their effort, and maybe to localization teams too. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely.
I think that the website is well structured. You have to know the concept before get in the concept. So that's why all the tutorials are on the first page of the documentation. But then you go to the concept and get the input that you need. And I don't know if it is possible to know from the Google Analytics if they are using more the search or Google search more than using the concept page on the documentation. I don't know if it is possible to know if you can do that comparison.
So are you asking like the value or the benefit from a specific page?
I would like to know if you get more people getting what they need from the concept in the documentation page, or you get more visit from Google or the search on the documentation, the search bar.
By the way, Jim,
I think it's sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead.
You can go ahead first.
All right. No, I was just say the same. That I think the documentation is well structured, but you have to learn. You have to get this interaction with the site. You have to learn Kubernetes. Otherwise, there is no case. If you start using Kubernetes because a coworker or someone in a video tell you how it works, then you go for specific information because you don't know how it works. But if you go step by step for the documentation, you know how the website is structured. So maybe there's a lot of noise about the Google Analytics coming from Google, because you don't know what people know. Is that clear? I'm sorry. I'm trying to explain an idea that is in my mind. It's not very clear. Yeah.
I think I understand, but before getting clarification, Irvi, I want to give you an opportunity to speak up if you have a different comment or question.
Yeah, actually, I have the same thoughts because let's say we are stumbled upon a certain page, and then we notice that there is several things that actually interesting, or we want to learn something from that specific page, and then we try to kind of click related documents that link into that page, or usually people just kind of Googling whatever they want to search and then find it from the search engine result. So I'm also curious about digging deeper into the analytics, and I'd like to join the effort as well with you and Abigail.
Cool, absolutely. Let me add you on here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as far as the comment about kind of if people are actually searching and getting to direct links versus going to the website and navigating through it, is that a correct understanding, Carmaville?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Gotcha. So I put this bullet here, and we can definitely take a look to see. And I'm going to make an assumption that most likely it's probably searching and clicking through the search as opposed to knowing how to navigate the website. But that's just my assumption there. One other piece related to this, which has recently become available to us by using Doxy, and we can take a look at this, but I don't know if it necessarily makes sense, is this feedback, was it helpful, yes or no? You'll see this a lot in the Kubernetes documentation. I don't believe we're using it to the full effect. Well, I shouldn't say I don't believe. We aren't using this to the full effect of the impact that yes or no feedback has. Because with that page, you have the ability then to go into Google Analytics, and actually we could check this out here. So we can go into behavior, events, and overview. Maybe we can't do it live. If I can't find it, we're not doing it. Take a quick look here.
I'm not sure we have feedback enabled.
So I thought we did have it on some of our pages. Do you think that we don't have the actual?
Did you need to look under behavior? You were looking under audience behavior instead of behavior.
Good call. Behavior. All right, let me go back. Behavior, events, and overview. I did this once many moons ago. An event category, click the helpful row. An event category, helpful. And click view for report for the helpful role. Anyone see?
Yeah, it is enabled.
Cool. Anyone see view full report? So it looks like event category, click the helpful, view full report. If you don't, oh, okay. Event, okay. So it's been a while since I've looked at this. I'll try my best to summarize it, but I could have screwed this up a little bit. But essentially, when they click the yes, this is helpful, it's a JavaScript action that marks the page as being helpful. And I forget how they actually derive the no's to it. So here, the average value is aggregate rating for the page, values between 0 and 1. When a user clicks no, a value of 0 is sent to Google Analytics. When users click yes, a value of 1 is sent. So now we can get a percentage of the average value is the aggregate rating for that page. So by looking at this event here and the total events in this average value, you can look at the most helpful page being Kubernetes basics, at least for folks that gave us feedback here, at a 0.89, significantly higher. And let me actually sort that. And that's going to get ugly as well. All right, so I'm not going to waste everyone's time. The problem here is if there's a page that only one person clicked yes is helpful on, it's going to have a score of an average view or average helpfulness, I guess, if you will, of 1, whereas that might not be the case for some of the more active pages. So let's see we'll sort by total events. We see Kubernetes Basics has the most total events. So the most people have clicked yes or no if it being helpful. And we can see here that 89% of people found that to be helpful versus the kubectl commands reference docs has 404 people, but maybe a little less happy at 45%. Does that make sense? I know I kind of stumbled over explaining that, so I want to make sure I'm clear.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Yeah, so this, like, pieces like this in the Google Analytics, I feel like are underutilized, and much appreciation, Karen, for bringing this up, because I do think it's worthwhile of exploring some of these and seeing the current status of, what are our effective docs, what are our ineffective docs, and if you're looking at these pages here, it looks like what is Kubernetes and components is rated pretty high, but what are we doing wrong with kubectl commands? So I think that's a very valid point. Cool. Yeah. So I think this is worthwhile. I don't want to, overdo the analytic deep dive. I'm happy to click around if folks are interested in checking out anything in particular. Otherwise, I think we're all good to move on. What are folks thinking?
Right. Yeah. So I was just going to add, if I know you signed up, a couple people are signed up to follow through with it. I mean, it might be worthwhile to every now and then bring it up at a weekly meeting if there's time. You know, if people are interested and they want to review, you know, latest analytics, or there's something that's interesting, bring it up then. So it's just a continuous thread.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with that. Wonder what cadence would be acceptable, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
I have no idea.
Nice. Yeah, I think either way it'd be good to touch on for sure. Cool. All right, let me.
I have a question that is not related with analytics, but with the tool party triage party. Can I ask right now?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. I have two projects or three projects that I follow. Is a website, contribute, I think, and I don't know what. But when I use that tool, triage party, I see the generic Kubernetes as the only source of issues and pull requests and everything else. So it's made that I don't know how to use the tool, or that is how the tool works. You have everything there. I mean, related with all the projects you have, you cannot choose between the project that you're following.
Yeah, so I think this probably is a discussion we could hold within Slack potentially. I know Triage Party has been adopted by SIG release. I don't believe there's any Triage Party activity going on with SIG docs. Does anyone know of any use of Triage Party in SIG docs?
No, I've also only heard it in the SIG release engineering.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah. So Carmaville, that might be the case where there is no active involvement with Triage Party and Kubernetes SIG documentation. But either way, definitely happy to discuss further in Slack, I think.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So before moving on, are we all good on analytics? Any other questions, comments, takeaways? All right. Kubectl documentation. I know Karen brought this up. I saw Chi Ming made some comments as well, and Tim commented, I struggled to really wrap my mind around what what discussion was formulating around and what the clear discussion to be had was. So I'm going to open the floor up to whoever feels like giving context on this, and I'll be the note taker.
I'll segue, because I noticed that actually the lowest score from those top pages, the top feedback pages that were least popular, was the kubectl reference. So I think I'm introducing that to give weight to whatever we next talk about.
I guess I'll add, I added it because I felt like, yeah, I think it was last year, the end of last year, there was the effort to make the kubectl site, right? There's like a documentation site. And I thought there should be some kind of merging. I think, Tim, you also opened a PR about it. There should be some kind of merge between the kubectl command that's here with SIG docs and this new effort. And also, I think that it's, it's a continuous effort to maintain the current kubectl command reference. And it also looks different. So it's another sort of a third factor. So there's a couple things. So I don't know what the state of the new kubectl site is. So that's really why I brought it up. It's sort of a maintenance question and a direction question.
Yeah, and I know that one of the things that the Kubernetes project has been facing is there's a lot of website sprawl. So there was like download Kubernetes, there was like the ks.dev, which is more contributor focused. There's the Kubernetes documentation, and there's the kubectl site. I believe Nginx Ingress is a GitHub page, and there's a little bit of fragmentation there that is a little bit unwieldy. But at the same time, I know that the folks working on the kubectl site work closely with SIG docs to model the same Doxy, same Hugo, basically the same overall workflow. I'm not aware of any efforts to pull those back in, although I know that they would be welcomed, but I'm curious if other folks have heard anything otherwise.
I think it's, it's harming people's experience with Kubernetes to have two sites that don't really. There's two problems. One is that there's two sites that don't have the same look and feel, and the other one is that there's. Well, I guess there's three problems. I've seen websites where behind the scenes, if you know about technology, you can see that there's actually two different things, but the people who've designed them have made it so that one dovetails into the other, and unless you're looking for it, you don't notice the seams. The URL changes and everything's slick. Apple had that set up like that for many years, and have now gone for a single unified website pretty much. So we're not doing the smooth dovetailing of different experiences. What we're doing is the rough, unintegrated experiences that don't really talk to each other and don't mention each other's existence, unfortunately. And I do think that harms. Kubectl is such an important command for people to use that it harms people's experience with Kubernetes.
Yeah, I agree with you with the latter part, especially because I feel like there's not cohesion between the different sites and efforts, and the command reference with the doc site it's been there for a while. So I think it's, yeah, we maintain it, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure the differences between what we have and what the other sites are offering. The accuracy, the documentation.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. One thing I'm wondering, and I'm just talking out loud here, is I would want to say mono. I'm curious if something like this might be of interest. Now it looks like these are all subdomains, but essentially, so just for context, for folks who haven't leveraged or used Hugo or Netlify before, the way our Kubernetes website's deployed is via Netlify is the host, and Hugo is the engine that generates all the content. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when a pull request is merged into the Kubernetes website, it tells Netlify, hey, please rebuild this website, and it does, and it loads, and it does a blue-green cutover to the new website. The reason I'm bringing this up is there's ability in Netlify to have a monorepo, which is essentially multiple sites that share images, components, utilities. So in this case, their example is a website folder that is completely standalone, that is www.company.com. The app folder is app.company.com, and then docsite is docs.company.com. I don't know if this is the answer, but it might be kind of interesting to explore about potentially giving that one unified view, maybe having a different owners and approvers file in a certain segment of the website repository to start bringing it all under one umbrella. But like I said, it looks like this might only be subdomains. It might not actually be like company.com/foo/bar. We might not even be able to use this. But I thought that was kind of cool, and it might be something worth exploring.
Another idea is just to pull in submodules or do some sort of coordinated build, keep the repos separate, but, be able to publish from multiple repositories. I don't know the practical answer to it, but it's just an idea. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I like it. Do we have anyone interested about kind of owning this or seeing at least some improvement or opening? Like, is anyone interested in furthering, this discussion? I would imagine.
I'm interested, but I don't know whether how much time I'll have to, there's so much time of the day, in the evening.
I totally get that.
If there is someone who thinks that they are confident that they could coordinate and they've got the time to do that, but the relatively easy bit of the technical advice they're not sure about, I'll do the technical advice bit. I'll offer
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
If
one
someone
thing
else-
I think
Sure.
we should engage, SIG CLI, right? I think that's the key, is engage the group and see, where they stand, right?
Yeah, that's the bit I don't think I want to put my time forward. I've got
Mhm.
the architecture and the API reference piece to take up. But I would be really willing to support another person who feels that like they want to take that on.
Cool. Anyone else? I know, Karen, you're quite booked up, as well as Tim. Just making sure we have the support needed if we want to take this as an initiative.
Sorry, can I ask? Can you repeat what you want to do? You want the other documentations about Kubernetes were based on on Kubernetes documentation? That's
Yeah.
what you said.
Yeah.
You
So,
want
sorry, go
centralize.
ahead.
You want to centralize the documentation about Kubernetes, and the other side. I mean, talk with other side like Minikube, an example, to get the documentation from your side, from the Kubernetes itself.
Yeah, it's really about consolidation. So here, I can open up this. So here's the kubectl and customize page, which, if you notice, is an entirely separate website than it is for Kubernetes docs, or just the regular standard Kubernetes website here. And so the concept is, since these are two entirely independent websites, and this isn't the only example, there's a lot of other fragments of websites. The concept or the initiative brought up was, how do we bring this underneath the main Kubernetes website in a cohesive overall experience for people looking for information?
Yeah, because if you update the documentation from, I don't know, version 1.16 on Kubernetes, maybe Minikube don't update their own documentation about Kubernetes version 1.16 or whatever. That's the point. Is that the point?
That's one of the points, for sure, definitely.
All right.
So the reason that we're focusing on kubectl is because we had that evidence from the analytics that satisfaction with the kubectl in particular, not kubelet, not Minikube, but the kubectl bit of the documentation is particularly low.
I can try to consolidate with other folks that might knew about this, but I will need help.
Cool. I'll put you down as leading in this one then, and it looks like you could have some help from Karen and Tim. Hopefully, I don't mean to speak for anyone here.
I can already, I won't now, but I can sketch out a bunch of different approaches, and some of those approaches are really SIG docs turning up on SIG CLI's door and saying, we're from SIG docs and we're here to help. And some of them are very different. There isn't a way to do this. There are some good options, but they all involve talking to people.
Okay.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm familiar with how the command reference is built today. So for SIG docs.
Maybe we can discuss this.
Sure, offline,
okay.
sure, whatever.
Sure.
Another time.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for bringing that up, and I totally agree. I think that this definitely is an area of pain, so it's awesome to see. And that brings us to the end of our planned agenda with proposals, and that's it. Does anybody have any other proposals or any other things that they would like to discuss tonight, depending on where you're at?
is usually this amount of work the proposal is this it's like this every meeting you have.
So this is really a special meeting for the quarterly meeting. So it's only once a
Uh-huh.
quarter or every 3 months. This is
Yeah.
very traditional here, and it's really a way to track larger goals or larger efforts in SIG docs. So where traditionally a contributor might say, all right, I'm going to contribute to SIG docs and fix a typo or fix a single page or review a single page. Very small one-off pull requests that don't take coordination between multiple people, that don't take coordination between multiple special interest groups. It's really a way for SIG docs to come together as one group and align on what are our overall goals, how are we doing on our goals, and who's owning and driving this goal to its next step, because unlike the corporate world, I feel like a lot of people have different bosses and different involvements with open source Kubernetes. And so this is a way to make sure that we're keeping ourselves accountable for the work that we're doing and making sure we're holding each other accountable as well.
You say 3 months, it's a quarter, 4 months. But when is the next meeting for this kind of meeting?
Yeah, so we try to do it quarterly, and that was what I was talking about at the beginning of the meeting here. We're a little bit late on the first quarter, but we held a meeting, I forget when, it would have been sometime in October for the Q4 planning meeting. And in that meeting, we went over the quarterly 3 goals, just like we did today. And then we planned for quarter 4. And so between October and December, we worked on some of the different goals here. And we really should have talked in January. And we should have had a quarterly planning meeting in January where we said, what happened in Q4 and what are we going to do in Q1? Unfortunately, with the way Q4 lands, with the different holidays going into the new year, crazy ice storms in Texas, whatever, natural disasters and fun stuff happens there. We ultimately had to schedule our quarterly planning for today, which is at the end of February. And so it's not really fair at the end of February to plan for a quarter that you only have a month left in. So this is a little bit of a unique case here, but the next meeting will be sometime in April, and that would be a quarter 2 review going over what was accomplished in quarter 1 and maybe a little bit of quarter 4.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. Very good.
No problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know you talked about this the first 10 minutes, but I didn't get that. So thank you for the details.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Like I said, this is a little bit of a special meeting. It's a little bit longer than traditionally the SIGDocs meetings are, and the goals and the proposals are a little bit larger scoped than a traditional SIGDocs weekly meeting.
Which we have every Tuesday, right?
Yep.
So you'll get to see the difference if you attend on Tuesday. You'll see the difference in the style of the meetings.
Yeah, I think this is the first. This is the first meeting of 3 or quarter month.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Cool. Any other proposals, questions, comments, concerns? All right. Hearing a whole lot of nothing. Go ahead, Tim.
Put the weekly meeting agenda in the chat.
I appreciate that.
So if you want to find the weekly meetings,
yes,
that's where they will be. That's the agenda.
I had some troubles on the second meeting trying to jump because I followed the wrong link and I didn't get there. What I do now is I go to Slack because usually there's a link there on the chat on the SIG channel. How that works. So
that
if
works.
you have a link.
There's also a official SIGDocs calendar. If you're using Gmail, you can add the SIGDocs calendar to your Gmail list, and I can send that to you in Slack.
Right. I'm gonna check that. I think I did that, but that's why I was surprised because it failed because I was following the link that Google reminded me. So I don't know what was wrong, but maybe it was me. So I'm gonna check. Maybe
No,
if the link is okay, if it fails again, I will follow. I mean, for this special meeting, I didn't get any alert. I mean, I get the alert of the meeting, but the link was for February 8th. I don't know what was wrong with Google Calendar, but the reminder and the link was the reminder was okay, but the link was wrong. So I get here late because that I mean I follow the link on the Slack channel.
Yeah, not a problem at all. And so it's not your problem. Definitely is an issue that's kind of self-inflicted from SIG docs. We had a invite that was sent out many I shouldn't say many, but at least years ago. Original invite was sent out with a certain URL in it, and ultimately that meeting was rescheduled and changed to the new URL. I forget how many months ago, but semi recently that link has changed. So it's very possible in between that old existing link and the new link changing that your invite didn't update. I know there's been a few folks who've had issues with it, and I try to make sure anywhere I see that old URL, I replace it. But I know you're not alone in those problems.
That's good.
Cool.
The Zoom links in the agenda are current.
Definitely.
Where?
If you look in the chat, you'll see a Google Doc. That's the agenda.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, at the top when you plan what you're gonna talk on that meeting, you yeah, you're right. Thank you. That's true.
Cool. Yeah, and I just realized I've been completely ignoring chat. So if anyone message me in there, please feel free to message me on Slack. We can sync up. But my apologies. I totally have been ignoring chat.
Yeah. A question about it. What if I want to follow the links that we shared in this meeting? Because on YouTube, are they available or not?
Unfortunately, I don't think there's a way that the links could be shareable through YouTube, but they can be copied into the quarterly doc here afterwards if you think that would be helpful. Otherwise, stashing them away in a notepad or something similar might be your best bet.
I've tried to copy some of the hyperlinks, and you can ask on Slack in SIGDocs channel and say, hey, there's this link that I didn't find. Could you remind me? And we will remind you. We will.
Yep.
Nice. All right.
Cool. All right. Any other questions, comments before we wrap up here? Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone spending their evening or morning or afternoon with us at SIG Docs, and look forward to chatting more with y'all. And you have a good rest of your day. Talk to you later.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.